For my best practice research presentation, I will be focusing on decoding. The student I'm focusing on is a 7-year-old boy who just finished first grade with diagnoses of dyslexia, ADD, and executive functioning deficits. Mayo Clinic defined dyslexia as a learning disorder that involves difficulty reading due to problems identifying speech sounds and learning how they relate to letters and words, or decoding. Some practices in place to work on decoding in my classroom are explicit phonics instructions using Wilson's Tier 1 Foundations program daily, Tier 2 reading intervention for this student based on Orton-Gillingham methodology with a reading specialist daily, and small group controlled teaching and learning environments available throughout the day. Matthew's dyslexia diagnosis affects his ability to accurately and fluently decode words. Therefore, he needs explicit instruction and practice to build the foundational skills that will enable him to relate the letters he sees to the sounds he knows efficiently and independently. 3 strategies to help Matthew accomplish this are tracking, blending using blending wheels, and self-teaching. So the first strategy is tracking. Tracking and identifying letters visually represented is the first step in decoding a word. And already, because of his ADD and dyslexia, this is already posing as a challenge for Matthew. In a 2015 study by Raylo and Baeza-Yates, they tracked people with dyslexia's eye fixation when reading. And they did this by the duration that an eye was fixated on a page when different factors were manipulated, such as spacing, sizing, coloring, margin sizes, and more. Throughout this study, it was found that participants with dyslexia had significantly shorter fixation durations when using bigger fonts compared to smaller fonts. Also, it was found that participants preferred standard separations or more separated characters within a word, and that the pure black text on a white background was not recommended by these participants due to its high contrast, as many of them are sensitive to the brightness, and this can cause words to swirl or blur together. So already through this research, I can create a text that is visually accommodating for my student, and therefore he already is at an advantage for identifying graphemes before he's even asked to associate them with phonemes. Now, this tracking can easily be differentiated for students. It's been found that the guidelines to enhance readability for people with dyslexia also benefit people without dyslexia. So therefore, whether a student has a diagnosis or not, these accommodations can be put into place. Printed resources, books, and worksheets can easily be adapted to fit the criteria, and the criteria can be individualized for each person. The sizing, the spacing can really match what works best for each student. And then as the student masters the ability to decode efficiently with these adaptations, they will practice with them. They can then slowly progress to smaller text, more standard spacing and coloring, so that when they go get a book from a library, a magazine, a menu at a restaurant, they're still used to these more standard setups so that they can still see success. The second strategy is blending using blending wheels. So once individual letters are identified and corresponded to their letter sound, the next step in decoding is to blend these sounds to form a word. So it's important that there's a strong phonics program in place, which is Foundations, to teach these phoneme-grapheme connections. Currently with Foundations, they use a finger tapping method for blending, where each phoneme gets a tap of a finger, and then the thumb blends the fingers together. This relies heavily on strong OT skills, and there also isn't a great visual representation to go along with it. But blending and segmenting are the most sophisticated phonemic skills and the most important for application to decoding, so it's really important to have a strong visual and strategy to really work on this. So, the blending wheel on the top right corner, you can see that there are different colors for the concentric circles, and each color represents a different phoneme. So through this, the students can then spin the wheel, and it will create either a real word or a pseudo word that they can then practice, and the color differentiation will really help them visualize how to blend these sounds together. So students who received phonics instruction with pseudo words demonstrated greater improvement in decoding than students who received phonics instruction using only real words, which is another benefit for these blending wheels. The blending wheels may be constructed to include only simple CVC patterns or more challenging consonant clusters and multi-letter word vowel patterns, which makes them really simple to differentiate. Depending where a student is in terms of their phonics development, they can have different sounds and phonemes and graphemes on their wheel. So a student who is keeping up with the foundation's progression might be working on R-controlled vowels, whereas a student who needs more review or practice may go back to Unit 2 and practice those CVC words again. And then the blending wheels can also be introduced during small group strategy and reading time, so that the teacher can be manipulating them, can be explaining them, and can be checking student success. However, as the students progress, as they become more independent working with these wheels, and as their phonics skills progress, they can then take them and work independently as a teacher is working with another group. And the final strategy is self-teaching. So decoding at a young age is essentially reading words that you have heard but never seen. So through tracking and blending along with strong Tier 1 phonics instruction, students have these tools to decode. Therefore, phonological decoding thus provides a powerful self-teaching device because the explicit learning of a small set of spelling sound correspondences allows the child to decode an increasingly large number of words, which bootstraps orthographic and lexical development. So basically, the students can use all that they've learned in foundations through their tracking practice, through their blending, and apply it when they are reading. Students typically, though, will be sitting as they're developing with a teacher and have this external teacher near them who can correct them, who can assist them, and who can be pronouncing the words that the students are expected to sound out. But in real life, although there is an external teacher sometimes, the external teacher does not provide correct pronunciations for many thousands of words. As a matter of fact, the power of self-teaching is the idea that such an external teacher is not needed. So as important as it is to provide these students with the foundational skills they need, it's equally important to provide them with an opportunity to work on self-teaching and to build independence by applying what they've learned. Then they'll become stronger decoders, they'll be able to work more independently and progress throughout their reading development. This is also something that can be differentiated. The grapheme-phoneme correspondences are developed, the more words students will be able to decode. So during small group instruction, as different level students are taught different phonics rules, they can then apply those to their independent reading. And then typically students, as they progress through their reading levels, meet less frequently with their teacher and are given more time for independent reading. And this independent reading will be most beneficial for them if they have this self-teaching skill and are able to go and continue reading, work through problems, decode new words without relying on an external teacher. So after teaching all of this, it's very important to have an assessment in place to track what students are learning and how beneficial it is for them. So earlier I cited that Lane and Pullen found that instructing students using real and pseudo words led to the greatest level of improvement, so both types of words must be assessed. The Quick Phonics Screener, or QPS, is an informal phonics assessment that can be used to diagnose a student's strengths and instructional needs in phonics and decoding skills. Through this Quick Phonics Screener, because it can just be printed out and it can also be presented in a variety of different ways, you can modify the formatting and therefore the students can have different sizing, spacing, coloring to best suit their tracking. And they'll also be asked to blend phonemes to decode real and nonsense words that contain phonics rules they've already learned. The QPS sections their assessment by different phonics skills, so it starts with letter ID and sounds, then CVC words, introducing digraphs and blends as it goes, so you can really target where the students need more specific work. In conclusion, Decoding is a foundational skill for all of reading and is a precursor for comprehension, spelling, writing, and cross-disciplinary success. Explicit instruction in tracking graphemes, blending the corresponding phonemes, all while building independence using self-teaching, will result in readers with strong decoding skills. One potential implication is that with all of this focus on decoding, there is also a need to simultaneously focus on fluency and comprehension. We need to be sure that although decoding is foundational for reading, that we are still building comprehension through read-alouds and that fluency is still being worked on. One potential solution is that as decoding becomes automatic, fluency and comprehension will follow. So a benefit to this is that decoding does need a lot of focus, but in turn, the fluency and comprehension will come as students are expending less energy on decoding each word. It's also been found that lower achieving readers simply read less during the school day than their higher achieving peers, spending more instructional time on other activities. These other activities are instrumental for becoming strong readers and extremely important. However, it's really important that we provide students, especially these students, with an opportunity to read throughout the day as much or more than their higher achieving counterparts. So creating this opportunity to read throughout the day to apply everything they've learned is so important in the development of readers. I'm really excited to put these practices to use with Matthew and other students and to see where it succeeds, as well as areas that I still need to improve. Thank you.